All right. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Science of Self. Thanks for joining us today. We have a guest on the podcast today, Dan Bowling. And rather than me introduce and get some of the topics wrong, as I'm afraid to do, I'm going to ask Dan to take a few minutes, introduce himself, and share some insights on uh, some of the things he's accomplished in his life, some of his viewpoints, and how they apply to our listeners. And then, as usual, take the conversation from there. Dan, please
Great,
introduce
great.
yourself.
Hello, pleasure to be here. Yeah, high level. So I own and founded a globally recognized sales and marketing firm, right? So we've got 25 people that work here, and our specialty is scaling consumer product brands. And one of the many things that makes us special is we do it on all channels. So whether that's brands and physical retailers like Target, where we manage, I don't know, like 100 to 110 brands at Target, or a Walmart, we also do business with our clients and our partners on Amazon or direct to consumer. So, when you hire us, it's kind of this executive firm that understands, the whole industry, if you will, and then we put together robust plans for all of our clients of how they can scale what we call what matters most, right? So it's the P&L, like profits, but also them as like a human and a founder. And then for us as a company, we're very philanthropic. So our company has fed over 1 million children. We've saved 200 girls from human trafficking. We've funded like domestic abuse awareness for over 100 kids. So, what we try to do high level is help brands grow, and at the same time, really redefine what success is.
So, just to reassure our listeners, this is not a business podcast, although the business is extremely successful uh, from all accounts that I've seen. Uh, a business is only successful when you put the right philosophies and principles to work within the business. And a philosophy or principle that will work in a business relationship can also be adjusted or used directly to work within your own mind with your self relationship on a certain level, to work with others to make yourself and your relationship stronger, make your community stronger, and advance your principles and values through a wide number of areas. Um, Tell us about, first note I have here is toying around. And I think this goes to your target relationship with managing, as I understand it, some of the products within Target. But toying around is more than just a toy company or a toy placement service or a retail helper. Tell us
Yeah.
about toying around.
Yeah, so that's our division that would focus specifically on physical retail. So we go to market under different brand names. The parent company is the Genesis company. And to your point too, like, yeah, it's a business, but really a business is just the sum of the people. So, why we've been successful and we've won like Inc. magazine, awards multiple times is because of how great our team works together, how unified of approach we have. It really is rooted in one thing, um, that we hold hands on and agree, and it's this mantra of create a better story. And we have a lot of things that we believe to be true here, but one of them that really grounds everything that we do is this idea that everybody wants to be part of a larger story. And it was a phenomenon that I noticed. I live in Minneapolis now, but I started my career working in the South. I was living in Atlanta, and I was very surprised, even though I played college sports, I love sports, but I would see people like very affected in their behavior, mood, or attitude on a Monday morning based on if their favorite sports team won. And down there, it's not even pro sports, it's college sports, which take place on Saturday. So I'm like, 48 hours later, people are showing up to work like, noticeably affected. And I'm like, how can you be so affected on them 48 hours after your team played, whether they won or lost? You're not even on the team. And it really started me down this path of like what people, what grounds us all. And I think a core thing there is that we all want to be a part of a larger story. So that really rooted our philosophy as a company, um, with this idea of like, let's come together and create a better story, like give people the opportunity to be part of that larger story, to make work more about a to-do list and make it more about coming together and serving each other and then our clients, and then really the communities that we live in.
That's I live in Atlanta. I'm coming to you from Atlanta this morning, and it's very interesting. And even more so, I guess I have some roots in Alabama, where
Mhm.
of course, Georgia, it's Tech versus University of Georgia, and Alabama versus Auburn. Those feelings run very deep, and they do last a long time. Uh, and that's an interesting insight to take that into a place of belonging almost that people are looking for as identifying with that team, as you say, even though they're not part of the team. And yeah, those feelings do last for many days or weeks. Uh, or if it's the end of the season with a bad loss, it lasts 5 or 6 months, right, till you get to the next opening day. Um, you mentioned your employees. Did I believe I read correctly in there, you have a blurb on, or a bullet point on 100% retention in
Yeah,
one of your
that's right.
companies or one of your divisions? That is astounding to me. How do you manage that? What does that mean to you? What does it mean to your employees to be involved in a company or a organization like that?
Yeah, well, and it starts with setting this vision, right, where they're all excited to come to work today, every day, right, and making their to-do list more about the larger story that they're playing in. Like, hey, when you do this on a mundane Tuesday in February, which if you know anything about Minnesota, like February is awful, right? The sun hasn't shined and it's below zero. But if you come into work and you get that thing done, like you affected somebody's life, right? That's what we're talking about of how we can make sure that we all have this vision of when we come together, we're part of this larger story. So it really is rooted in that one belief. I think the other part of the retention rate is understanding um, just how critical work is to who we are as humans, right? Like I also believe that we were created to grow and to build. And whether you believe like in creation itself or evolution, I think it gets you to the same endpoint of like, okay, well, you evolved millions and millions and millions of years. You did so by growing and adapting and changing. So I think when we come into work every day, like work is normally tough on everybody because like there's a new problem that has to be solved, right? So everybody's all stressed out. But how we look at it is, hey, here's an opportunity to grow. Here's an opportunity to get better. Here's an opportunity to learn. So I think it's this culture that we've put in place where like this is a very safe place. This is a very exciting place. I mean, I'll tell you a story really quick. Before COVID was even a thing, um, I put together an idea to do work from home or work from anywhere, like 2 days a week, because I'm always trying to think about like what if I worked here, like what would I want, right? So from a benefit standpoint, which I'll get in later, like what benefits would I want if I worked here? So I announced to everybody this new policy where you can work from wherever you want, 2 days a week on a Monday or a Friday, and everybody hated it. They were like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we want to come work. We want to come see everybody. I want to be next to my colleagues. I don't want to work at home." So it's just funny because you fast forward like 6, 7 years. If I change that policy because we still have 2 days that are work from home, people would freak out. But originally, everybody loved their coworkers, our culture, just even the aesthetics of the building. So we take all of that really into account of like how the building is designed, right? The benefits that we have, like we pay 100% for healthcare. I pay for everybody's gym memberships. Um, we pay for everything that we can just to try to make all of the Bennett's world class, even though we're a small company, with this idea that the business exists to serve, right? And the first thing it needs to serve is the people that work here, right? And if they're totally engaged, then the end result is obviously we're going to be successful, which we have been. We've grown faster than our peers for I think the last 8 years in a row. So it's one of the reasons that we've been successful. It's the sum of the people, and let's make sure that we're engaged and taking care of the people first.
And you're talking, again, to be clear, you're talking about just an actual business. This is not your passion, your vision comes across as um, almost a charity or a mission, but you're talking about having your employees so interested in just an actual business, and that doesn't happen very often. I worked in several different professional establishments, and there was one of many. that started to approach that. It was a large IT firm for a cement company, a global company, and we had 50 to 75 people in the IT department. When we approached that kind of a family feel, but it's amazing that you can accomplish that within an actual commercial business. So the first thing you said was sharing the same vision. Is that, have you, tell us what that vision is?
Yeah. Well,
It,
we want to be the absolute best of the best end-to-end solution for any company or human we work with. And that human part's really important because we work with like a lot of smaller businesses and entrepreneurs. And just like our company is the sum of its people. Same with a smaller company. And the smaller it gets, the more important that is because the less and less people, that means the more they could affect, the health of the organization. So if we're working with somebody that's just a founder, like the health of that individual is probably going to determine the long-term health of the company. So we'll talk with our partners about like health and meditation and nutrition, and so we get into everything. So we'll get into KPIs on like ad spend and return on ad spend and digital shelf and all of the metrics and all of the KPIs to be successful on making an item grow. But what we really are talking about is like you as a human, how can you grow? Like, how do you look at adversity? And I think a key thing for everybody, it really starts with like what you believe. Because 9 times out of 10, like if you believe in something, like it empowers you to execute on it. Or the opposite is a little bit easier for people to digest. Like if you think you're going to fail, you probably are, right? So we have this whole system called we call it like a belief flywheel. And here's what we see over and over and over. And I've seen this happen in my own life. I've seen it happen in our business as it grows, and then we see it happen with all of our customers. Where first you have to be very concrete on like what do you believe? And not to make this about business, but if the business is I believe that we're going to grow X amount because of these reasons, or if it's a personal goal, I believe I want to do or I can do X, Y, and Z. Like it really starts with that belief. And that what happens is this flywheel, right? So if you believe something with all your heart, mind, and soul, that should give you, right, the raw material to consistently go after it. And what's great there is success is really one thing. The raw material of success is consistency, right? So if you believe, right, that should give you the material to consistently do that action, and you're going to have results. I don't care what you're trying to do. If you go and you consistently do it every day or every hour or every week, depending on what your goal is, you will get better. And what we see happen there is that belief then goes into consistency. The consistency has one output if you do it, success. And then what happens there is people start to trust the process, or they start to trust the vision, or they start to trust the leader, or whatever it was that put the belief together in first place. And that's when you start to see one of the most wonderful slash dangerous things out there, and that's momentum, right? Like that's when sports teams come back from down 20 because the whole team, they just started to really believe, right? And momentum, what that is just the output of the belief. Like it happened, right? It's the sweat, if you will, of the belief. How does a company grow over and over? How does somebody lose X amount of pounds? How does somebody transform their life? It's this belief fly where they believed enough to consistently get after it, and then they started seeing success. And what's beautiful is once you recognize that or go through that process, then your belief can get a little bit bigger. Then your belief can get a little bit bigger. Then your belief can get a little bit bigger. So when I started this company, I had a belief of like, well, I think we can get to 50 million in sales managed. We got there. Then what? All right, well, maybe it's 100. So we got there, right? And now our goal is like 750 million. And we're halfway there, and it's like, of course we'll get there. Like, I know that we will get there. And I think that's the other thing when you set goals out there is just recognizing and remembering that there's no laws that can stop us from getting there. There's no glass ceiling that we live under. There really is opportunity for everybody, right? It's an infinite economy for the most part. So that's true for your business. It's also true in your personal life, right? A lot of people are like, oh, somebody else has X, Y, and Z. That's great. That doesn't mean you can't, right? There's not X amount of whatever. out there for us to go get. So it's really a beautiful, exciting place. Like we're so blessed to live in this country. I know we have a lot of problems, but for the most part, like you're free, right, to believe what you want to believe and then go execute on that. And that's a wonderful, wonderful freedom.
Or some of our listeners who might be less mechanically inclined, explain a flywheel.
Yeah. So a flywheel is anything where as soon as you add to it, it spins faster, right? So every action kind of begets the movement of the next action. And I would say in business or in your personal life, like anytime you have a goal, what you're trying to create is this flywheel where you're building and building and building. And at some level, like that's kind of the secret sauce to continue to hit whatever goal you might have, right? So once you have success, like then your belief grows, and then you just keep going and keep going. But it really comes down to consistency. There's nothing, right? There's nothing that you can't figure out or learn or do if you consistently get after it. The problem is normally you don't have the belief to go do it, right? And people are like, oh, I'm out of energy, or there's a million different excuses. So it really starts with how powerful that belief is. From my experience and my background, like I was paralyzed as a kid, right? And I still went on to set like multiple track records that still stand today. I played Division I football. I lost my father when I was a child. Like statistically speaking, like if you I think there's a website out there called like the fatherless generation, and it's like scary when you look at the stats of like number of people, men that are in jail, like 98% didn't have a father. Like almost every crime can lead back to not having a father figure, which is amazing and a topic maybe for a different podcast. But statistically speaking, like I should not be here. um, but I decided at a really young age, excuse me, that I could decide that the world's either working for me or it's working against me. And I think that whatever you decide to believe there is going to radically change your whole life. So if you think the world's working against you, then absolutely it is. Because every single time that something negative has, your flywheel is going to keep turning, right? Your belief is negative. The world's out to get me. I'm never going to be enough. All right, there's your belief. Now your flywheel is going to turn because you're going to continue to believe that over and over and over. Or you can look at the opposite way. The world's working for me. So do I want to be paralyzed again? No. But I never would have won any state records. I never would have played college sports if I wouldn't have been paralyzed. Because having that taken away from me, it was the only way, and I believe this to be true, that I would have realized how wonderful it is to run. Like running is great. And you might be rolling your eyes and thinking, are you serious? And it's like, no, running feels amazing. And if you don't believe me, I guarantee you will if you were paralyzed, right? Once you can't lose something or once you can't use something. Um, so, so that's just one example, but also let's just build on the paralysis example. Right now, as a 42-year-old man, I am like more, I guess, qualified than maybe anybody else in the world to go talk to a young person that got paralyzed, right? Like I wasn't affected, I was equipped. And I think that's part of the mindset for us. And I talk about the business, but like everybody shares the same mindset of like nobody here is a victim, and we've all had terrible things happen to us. Like I've had terrible things happen to me, and that's part of the human experience. So do I take that and do I think, okay, I was affected or was I equipped? And I choose to believe I was equipped. And now it's like, okay, what do I get to do with that experience? So that's a little bit of the insight into like how we believe and how the company believes, and one of the key reasons why we're successful.
So the opposite of what we see in the news or hear about on some news broadcasts, the opposite of the victim mentality, the victimization. All this has happened to me. Now what's going to happen to make me better or to overcome these things? But it's your approach still today is the opposite of that. This happened to me. Now what am I going to do? Basically, it's up to me. It's I can't be the victim here. I have to be the source of whatever's going to happen next.
Yeah, and I think part of it is really protecting your inputs, right? So like I rarely listen to the news. I might get a couple snippets here because I don't want to be clueless of what's going on, but the news doesn't exist to really inform. They're all for-profit companies. They exist to get you glued to the TV and freak you out, which is why like how many times has your heart rate gone over 120 or 150 for something that never happens, right? And I think psychologically this is a great stat. I know your listeners love statistics. I think this won't be exact because I'm a generalist, but I believe it's something to the effect of like 80% or 83% of the things that you worry about happening never happen. Like never happen. We spend most of our life on a Monday worrying about Sunday or worrying about Tuesday, thinking about Sunday or worrying about Tuesday instead of enjoying Monday. Right. And then upon that stat, what's interesting is there was another like multitude of percentages that the stuff that did happen, you ended up being thankful for. So the net of it, and we talk about this all the time, is it's 93% of the stuff that you worry about either didn't happen or you're happy that it did. 93%. Once again, I'm a generalist, so don't hold me to it. But in my mind, that's basically everything. Everything we worry about, for the most part, either doesn't happen or I'm happy that it did. Yet, I guarantee that most people are spending 93% of their time worried about something. So I think you have to really root yourself in like, okay, what's reality? How does it really affect you? And I think a good lesson for us, we talk about it here all the time. Make your own headlines. I don't care what's going on in the news. Like I'm a father, I've got two children, a third on the way, a beautiful wife. I'm going to make my own headlines today, right? Dad came home and hugged his children and told them how much he appreciates about them, right? CEO walked into office. We're struggling right now. Our company's struggling because of tariffs. CEO walked in the office and made sure everybody was feeling okay about their future, right? So let's make our own headlines, is another mantra of ours. But it still goes back to like, what do you believe? And then how do you protect those beliefs? Which is, I think, really a bit of a strategy that you have to try to execute on every day. And because it's pretty easy to just get scroll on social media or go out to a coffee shop and listen to people just fill you full of negative ideas and negative thoughts. And it seems like that's where the world wants you to go. And I never go there. No, thank you.
Your attitude and how that impacts your business is pretty obvious, and I can see why employees would want to be there and would want to stay there. So when you hire, do you look for this specifically? Is this something in your hiring process that you want to find in a person beyond any professional skills or personal abilities?
100%. It's the number one thing I look for. It's just their
Is it?
demeanor. How do they think? How do they feel? How do they view the world? Who are they as a human? Because that's who's coming to work every day. There's no such thing as like, business Dan and then home Dan. Like we're one human. And what happens at home affects how I show up to work, and what happens at work affects how I show up at home. And that's another thing that I talk to. We'll have like a holiday party. So all the spouses, everybody will be there. And I'll make sure I tell them like I'm doing everything I can to make sure that after work I send the people back home to you, right? In a positive, excited, happy way, right? It's like who am I? I'm a leader. If everybody comes to work and I grind them down and then send them home and say, go be a good dad or go be a great wife. So I think it's an immense responsibility that I felt from day one. It's like there's 25 people here. No one's ever left, which means by definition, they're going to give a majority of their life walking into these walls every day and working for me, like executing what my vision is. And that gets into too, like I said, my vision, but it's our vision. Like it's our company. I own it if we get in trouble, but it's our company. I wouldn't be here without them. And they all know that. So it's like together we're creating more than a company. It's like we're creating this life experience together. So we're all in it together on like what the vision is and how we're going to get there. And then I have this immense, I don't want to say pressure or anything negative. I think once again, it's an opportunity. It's like, how can I steward everybody's life here that I got a chance to lead. Like, what a cool, wonderful thing.
I like that. Yeah, that's. I'm making so many notes because your bullet points could be entire sessions or an entire motivational speak. That's fantastic. I love the raw material of success is consistency. That goes from a while back in your talk, but that is strong. So all of these things come together uh, into a successful company. One of the notes in your I'm sorry, either I believe in your bio information, might have been on the website, but I think it was in your bio information, was an approach with an acronym BCE-M. Is that something you'd care to talk about, expand on a little bit? Because I was interested in, I know what know what they stand for. I know a little bit about it, just what was there, but is that
Yeah,
something
that
you
gets,
would,
yeah, sure. That's the belief mindset from the standpoint of what we believe, right? B is the belief, C is the consistency, right? From there, you're going to have S, which is success, and then from there you get into that ability to have that momentum, right? So, like right now, we're going through what are we going to do with these tariffs, and is this an attack on us? Sure feels like it from the standpoint of like we're just a small company now. There's a new policy and our business is at risk, or is this an opportunity? Well, if you've been listening the last whatever 26 minutes, we all view it as an opportunity. Everybody else is in the same boat. Competition's in the same boat. What are we going to do now to come together and win? And the thing about success, whether it's losing a pound that you wanted to lose or getting to 10 push-ups because you could never do any, or like picking up market share, right? Which is what we talk about. Everybody loves to be successful. So it's like, how are we going to win? And then how do you celebrate that win? I think that's a huge thing too, within like all of the negativity, right? Which we just don't even allow. How do you input then celebrations? And I think it's important to really celebrate as much as possible. And I'm not talking about like parties, but just like acknowledging what we've
right,
accomplished, because that, right, that also strengthens the belief mindset of the individual and then therefore the entire company. So anytime that we hit a KPI, like a key performance metric, and it can be something tiny. Like there's a bell that gets rung and we celebrate it, right? So you're sitting here all day long and the bell's ringing every 30 minutes because somebody just did something awesome. And you're sitting here and you're like, this is great. Like people are succeeding all around me and now I want to do something too, right? So and then back to the we are all created to be part of a larger story. The net of every time that bell rings, we all know like somebody just got fed, or another girl might have gotten saved from human trafficking, and we talk about that, right? So it's really this once again this flywheel of how do you create something that when it's done, it begets the next action being done, and then that begets the next action being done, and the flywheel just keeps turning. Because if you're sitting here and you're hearing that bell ring, and I announce that, hey, we saved 57 kids today, and hey, here's the new vision to overcome tariff, like you're all in, like everyone's all in, and it makes it a really fun and exciting place to work. I mean, hopefully you can just see by my demeanor, like our
right,
company right
yes.
now, what is it, May 13th at 8:33 here, is in absolute turmoil. Like we're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a day in revenue. It's a disaster over here. You would never notice it, excuse me, if you walk through here because this isn't an attack. This is an opportunity. And I've got tons of different plans and visions and ideas that I've talked to the team about of like, we're going to try to do this. And we're going to come out of here not paralyzed. We're going to come out of here sprinting.
Wow, wow. Yeah, uh, I haven't spoken with anybody in the business side that deals with the tariffs in any manner like this, but obviously you have a lot of import export kind of thing going on there. I
Yeah.
love the concept of you just don't allow negativity, uh, and that ties in directly with the victimization mindset. You just so many places want to thrive on it. The gossip, the all the side conversations can go toward negativity. You just don't. We don't allow that here. That has to be one of the biggest pieces of keeping a group attitude where it should be. We just don't go. We won't be negative. We just won't do it.
Yeah, we don't do it. And I don't want to be naive. Like we all have negative thoughts and there's bad things that happen and there's a safe place to talk about it because sometimes things happen and it sucks, right? And it hits you hard and you have to talk about it. I'm not saying you bury all that, but you talk about it, then you realize what it is. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get stronger. It's an opportunity to get smarter. It's an opportunity to pick up market share. It's an opportunity to learn, right? So it's like, hey, I wanted to lose X amount of weight, or I wanted to do A, B, and C, and I didn't. All right, now you know. Gosh, you didn't, which by the way, failing at something is most likely the best education in the world, right? Like if you did something successful, you probably already knew how to do it. You didn't learn anything. If you failed, you absolutely learned something. What'd you learn? All right, don't freak out. Recognize you're a human. We all fail. What do you need to do differently, right? So it's all rooted in that belief of like every opportunity is an opportunity to grow. And then also realizing like we are all flawed. It's not like everything I say or everything I do works here. Actually, most of it doesn't work. But we all know that that's part of the process of getting to where we want to get to, right? I also think too,
Mhm.
like back on the watch out for listening to news and too many
Yeah.
podcasts. It's like there's this belief then that comes to you that like everybody's got it together, right? That you're the only one with these problems. That's not true. There is not
Mm-mm.
one issue that's not uniformly experienced by all of us, all humans. Now, maybe it's manifested a little bit differently, but the core root of it is the same for all of us. We all struggle with things. We all struggle with things. Like if my wife was on this podcast, she'd probably be chiming in left and right. I'm like, oh, really? How come you did this then? Or really, how come you failed at this then? But the fact of the matter is, I try to rise above everything and do the absolute best that I can. And I also find that it's very inspiring to others, right? So I think biblically, even it's to give is to receive. And you can read that and shrug your shoulders. But once you start actually living out that type of life, you start to realize that fruit. And it doesn't have to be a massive thing. You know, that's another thing is everyone's like, I don't know how to feed children or I don't know how to save someone from human trafficking. You don't have to, right? If you want to lose 10 pounds, just start with losing a half a pound. If you want to do 100 push-ups, make a goal to do one tomorrow. Start super small. All you have to do is a tiny input, right, into this flywheel consistently do one push-up every morning. Just make yourself do it. Well, all of a sudden you're going to do three, and then you're going to do five, and you're going to do seven, and you're going to see that belief flywheel change because your new goal is not going to be one, it's going to be 10,
Mm.
and then it's going to be 20, and then you're going to get momentum. And it's like, oh man, I bet I could do 1,000 someday if I went at it long enough. So, but you brought up something really important of like guarding those beliefs, you know, the inputs. And I think let's touch on that because it's so important because the world does just absolutely bombard you with negativity. Um, I think that the key tactic for that I learned a long time was actually meditation. I think meditation is unbelievably powerful. And I do it like 3 times a week for 20 minutes. So this isn't something where, from my point of view, we have to go sit in the woods for 2 hours, you know, every day. But step one is you have to recognize like what thoughts are you allowing into your brain? And that was a huge surprise to me when I first started this. It was like, oh my gosh, there's like a million things flying in my head all the time. You know, this idea, this or that. And step one for me was recognizing like what am I believing? Like what am I thinking all the time? And once you learn like to kind of quiet that down, then you can work on what you're going to input into it, right? Are you going to input into it that terrible thing that happened to you when you were 6? Are you going to input into it how terrible your mom or dad or uncle were? Are you going to put into it that bully that we all know of, right, from high school? Or are you going to input it the time that you got an A on your spelling test, right? Or that you had a tiny company and you were successful that first 6 months. So for me, it's like you can put anything you want into your brain as your raw material for your belief set, I only put in positive stuff of where I've won or I've succeeded, or my wife walking down the aisle, right? Like I'll think about that. Like what a great moment, how alive I felt. Um, so I think it's really important to really protect what goes in your brain. I think the saying is, you can't help if a bird lands on your head, right? But you can certainly, it's certainly your fault if it builds a nest.
Exactly. Um, you've alluded many times to the feeding of the children and the trafficking. Tell us how that ties into your business. Is it a direct part of your business? Is it a how does that fit in there? And how did you get into that? Uh,
Yeah.
just expand more on that. We've got about 20 minutes left. So,
Sure. Yeah. Well, high level, it starts with this idea that I believe we want to be part of a larger story. And it's my job as a leader to, as much as I can, allow my team members to participate in that. And that larger story can be like the success of a company or executing on our goals for the year. But even larger than that, I think is like affecting a human life. I don't think it gets any bigger than that. So for me, part of the story is like I lost my father when I was 12. So in my mind, it's like, okay, did that happen to me or did it happen for me? I don't wish it to ever happen again, but what are some takeaways from that? Well, I'll tell you what, and I'll answer your question. He wasn't the best dad in the world. I would have rather have had a great dad that was still with me, but he wasn't a great father. But even still, going through all of that, he taught me how to be a great father, right? I know everything not to go do. You're right. Now, would I have rather have him teach me by being great? Yes. But either way, this was a learning moment for me, right? And like my goal is to be the best dad and husband in the world, right? And who taught me that? My dad did indirectly by not doing it, right? So there was an experience there. So then I took that and I thought, okay, how can I, help as many kids as possible, because statistically the kids that are in trouble or are struggling most likely don't have a father figure. So from my standpoint, it's like I didn't have a dad. How can I go be a dad to millions, right? Or as many people as I can. So that's an example of, to answer your question, of like how something negative in my life happened, how I'm going to use that to do something really positive. And then you connect that together with the idea of like we need to create a larger story. We need to create an impact with what we do. So how we do it is each year we find a nonprofit that I think is doing an absolutely amazing job, right? Stewarding the donations, making an absolute great impact. And every year we partner with a new one. And we set our company goals and we're like, hey, if we hit our goals, like we're able to donate this much. And it'll be 1 million kids if we hit our goals, or 200 girls we can fund if we hit this goal. That was a couple years ago. 2 years ago, it was domestic abuse, right? So it's like, hey, if we hit our goals, we can afford to donate enough to this nonprofit that's local to help 100 kids. Um, Last year, it was the Fraser Institute, which is like the biggest nonprofit for autism, because the autistic rates are going through the roof. So we were the keynote speaker and the key the presenting sponsor there, and we helped them raise a record number of money. That like they raised more money during that event than they ever have, and they've been around like I think it was 83 years or something like that. So so that's how we do it. We find a nonprofit every year that we're going to partner with, and we put all of our desire behind hitting the goal so we can help as many kids as possible. And it's not just a donation of money. We also do a quarterly service project, and if that nonprofit's local, we'll go and like help them. Like if it's kids, we'll pack meals. For the Fraser Institute, it was donating like toys that with like sensory toys. So we try to find a way to not just give money. I think it's I think it's good to drop a nickel in somebody else's dream, but I think it's better to go to really serve with your time as well. So we make sure we do that.
the Fraser Institute you mentioned specifically, if you've done this research and found some that you have deemed very worthy, would you share those? We may have some listeners that are
Yeah.
may want to have a recommendation for a donation or an organization they can trust. Can you mention a few more?
Yeah, no worries. Feed My Starving Children, I think, is an incredible organization. The stats there like are mind blowing. Once again, generalist, so I'm not exactly right on the stat, but it's something like 98% or 99% of the meals that they pack actually get to the children, which is incredible that we're packing them in like Minnesota and somehow they get to some, you know, child in some country I'm not even aware of, right? Um, so Feed My Starving Children was very good. Um, I'm trying to remember. Might have to put it in the show notes of the human trafficking one. It's also very underground from the standpoint of like nobody really knows they exist because that's part of their secret sauce. Like they get embedded into these countries, um, and they partner with local authorities, and they kind of try to fly under the radar because they don't. They have to like get embedded into these kind of communities or into these really dark places. So I think it's called Marisi is the name of it, if I remember correctly. That was 2 or 3 years ago. Um, I'm sure with Google or AI, you can find the right one if you Google Marisi. They're an incredible organization as well.
When you were talking about your work environment, you talked about celebrating successes and achievements. Reminded me of a story uh, that I heard of Pixar in the early years with Steve Jobs and the early developers there. That when someone had a breakthrough, this would be with the production of Toy Story, the first movie, someone had a breakthrough with their lighting simulation or animation of some type. One of their big rewards was to allow that person to go to the toy chest and pick a toy.
Uh,
And these would be models of the characters in the movie, perhaps, or things that they've worked on before early in the Pixar thing. Uh, and that was quite a mental image to see. And if you've seen pictures of the staff on Pixar in the early years, they all look like Steve Jobs would have without the suit. Uh, Fresh out of college,
sure.
like myself, nerds to the nth degree, not worried about anything going on outside their own little thing and just and enjoying life and excelling at what they do. Uh, so that reminded me, and it sounded like maybe your organizations have a lot to do or are very similar to some of the things that happen in Pixar and many, many other successful organizations because they are just things that work. Uh, but you said that brought up in your mind, a story or a quote from Steve Jobs. Tell us what you had.
Yeah, well, it's I'm in the studio, but if I was in the room right over here, you'd see it on the wall, and it's basically this idea that everything you see um, was created by somebody just like you, right? And I think for me that was really an important moment in my life. I remember my first job, and I got invited to a meeting, and I'm working with like the executives at this massive company, and I won't say the name of the company, but it's a massive company. And I remember being like 25 or 26, and this might sound super arrogant, but I'll share the truth. I thought in there, I was kind of disappointed. I thought when I get to the business world and I'm working with like senior executives, that they were going to be the most brilliant, smartest, well spoken, unbelievably perfect people, right? Like business robots. And I realized they're just kind of like me, just 20 years older, a little smarter, which they should be because they've been doing this thing for 20 years, right? And I remember being very disappointed. But then I remembered the Steve Jobs quote. And it's like, well, no, that was a false belief. If you're listening, like I'm nobody special. I grew up in a tiny town of like 2,000 people in nowhere, Iowa, right? But the Steve Jobs quote really hits home, and we talk about it all the time. Of like everything that you see, look around you, was created or made or thought up by somebody who's very much, very much, very similar to who you are. So I think that's a really impactful quote just to remember because it's an absolute lie. It's an absolute lie that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, or this happened to you, therefore you can't. It's like, no, this happened for you, therefore you can, because the world's not working against you. It's absolutely working for you. It's just you that has to get out of the way.
Oh, fantastic. Uh, but we've got a few minutes left, and I have my zinger question that I'm kind of save for the end. I'll give you a preview of it. I, there's always a question that should have been asked and that I've missed. So while I kind of wrap up some thoughts here, I want you to be thinking about what did I miss if it's not at the top of your head, and maybe take a few minutes to give us a final summary or a final note that our listeners can take with them. But I would like to say this because this struck me several times, and I don't want to pontificate too long because people aren't here to hear me; they're here to hear you. But being, I'm an audiobook narrator. I'm a voice actor, and I have narrated thousands of audiobooks. The majority of those are nonfiction, and the majority of those nonfiction are self-help and self-improvement. So sometimes I've never actually put this in my byline, but I should be, I'm not, but I should be the most self-improved person in the world, just based on the number of books I've read and the amount of time that I've put into the process of going through self-help and self-improvement. But no matter how many books you read, it'd be like finance. There's an infinite possibly number of books, but there's a very finite number of principles from those books. And if you boiled down every self-help book, I think that's out there, from the most fundamental, from Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, all those, into the modern ones that sell for 99 cents on Kindle or on Amazon, you boil them down to a handful of principles. And what I was struck by as you spoke, whether you said these explicitly or it was implied in an attitude, most of those things I see embodied in your vision and in your attitude and in your words. I find it fascinating. Monitoring your inputs, staying away from the negative, the meditation, which we barely touched on, but research is beyond question how beneficial meditation is. And as you say, not a lot of people do that, a lot of people don't, if it's just simply mindfulness meditation. But that calmness of some type, so many things that you brought, celebrating the positive, building momentum, setting realistic goals, achieving them and moving on, and taking negative and making it a positive. Just a fantastic collaboration of things that you've put into your mind, that you apply to your life, and it seems to be abundantly evident in the things that you've achieved and in speaking with you. It's been an honor, really. I'm glad I had a chance to talk to you. I feel like you did, maybe walking into that CEO's office or the business office. I'm a bit humbled to be able to spend some time with you and to learn some things, and I certainly have. So in the 7 or less minutes that we have left, I'm sure I missed something that you want to impart to our listeners, or a piece of information you could share, something that we haven't touched on yet, or something you maybe want to reiterate. I'll leave the last few minutes to you, and then we'll sign off.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think a couple things, right? So one, try when you're in your car, everybody complains about the commute, right? Commute is a blessing. Here's an opportunity where you get to kind of be alone with your own thoughts. So in all things, I would push you to educate and not entertain, right? So I barely listen to music. I'll listen to music if I know like I'm in a poor state, or I'm sad, or I'm frustrated, like, and I need to get like some energy. I'll use music as a tool, but not to just kind of drown out. So in all that you do, try to educate versus entertain. Podcast, audiobooks, whatever. And on your favorite subject, like there's something, and if you don't know what this is, like here's a to do, and it can be go on a walk and think about it every morning till something inside you comes alive, or go journal, or go try to meditate and see like what's that thing your brain keeps going back to. But there's something inside of all of us, right, that we were either created to do, which would be my belief, or you evolved to do, that you really love doing. And whatever that topic is, like go be an expert on that. Like that's what you love. So go throw as many inputs as you can on that. Right. So that would be number one. Another ask I get from a lot of people, or question I get, is like for somebody just starting their business career, or you're just out of college, like, whether you're into business or not, like we all have to have jobs and careers. It's like, what do you do? It's like, for me, I think try to work for the largest company that you possibly can out of high school or out of college, because you just get exposed to so much, so many different people, the way they think, the best practices, and it's just use it as a great learning opportunity. They also have like better training, right? So if you don't know what to do, that's totally fine. I didn't know what I wanted to do until like, a couple years ago. It's like, oh, this is actually what I want to do. Great. So that would be number two. And then back to your point, Russell, on, appreciate the compliments on like, hey, you've read all these books and you're like a self-help guru and genius from all that you've read, and I'm nailing on a lot of things. Obviously, that's great to hear and comforting. What's surprising to me is I actually haven't read any of those books. I'm not a self-help guru from my standpoint. Like, that's not what I listen to. I listen to business and like KPI stuff and like how to grow a team. How so all of this is like learned, right, through one thing, and that's just taking action. And I think like all of us, not all of us, but a lot of us are like very paralyzed at even trying because you don't want to fail. And we call that head trash. That is just a BS belief that we call head trash. Like, just go, take the first step. I don't care what your goal is. In your mind, make it as big as possible and then cut it down to like, what's the tiniest action you could take? So back to the one push up a day, back to the I'm going to half a pound a week, like whatever it is, start really small and then just take action. And know one thing. One thing is this: the world is always changing. You are always changing. Everything is always changing. So if you have a goal to get from A to B, like by definition, you're going to have to change how you get there probably many, many times. And that's totally, totally okay. Like yes, we hit all of our goals. It's normally with like two or three pivots, as we call it in the business world. They call it a pivot. It sounds safer. All a pivot is, I failed the first time and now I'm changing course,
Uh,
right? Like, so even planes, when they fly to New York to LA, mid-flight will pivot because a storm will come up. Pivot's totally fine. That's what you want, and you want to learn along the way, like what's the new direction. So that's a couple like shotgun answer to your one question of three or four different things. Start small, educate versus entertain, right? Because you always want to be growing and getting smarter. And then just go, like just start it and don't be afraid of what happens. And I'll say one more thing because now you got me on a roll. Here's another saying.
Good.
Another saying of ours is like, embrace the weird. Okay. And here's what I mean by that. Like, if you ask me, hey, do you want to have a normal life, or an extraordinary life? Everybody will say, I think extraordinary life.
Right.
Okay. So therefore, I don't want to be like most people. It sounds bad, but I don't like, if I don't want to be like everyone else, then I don't want to be like most people, right? So, all right, well, therefore, what I do with my time and what I do with my thoughts are going to be weird. It's going to be different, right? Like, yes, I get up at like 4:30, and yes, I do like a cold plunge, and yes, I do all these things that some people are like, that's so weird. Like, you don't listen to music, you just listen to audiobooks. That's weird. And I'm like, that's right. And I embrace the weird because I don't want to be normal. I want to be abnormal. And that's weird. So that's another thing I just want to hit of like, you might have a goal and you're like, you're afraid because you might feel weird or different or judged. Great. Because that's when you know you're on your way to being special, is when you're not like anything else around you. So embrace, I'll leave you with this, embrace the weird. It's the way to go.
It's the way to go. Fantastic. The cold plunge. Yeah. It, you
I'll
might not
never
have
talk.
read any self-help books, but you need to write a self-help book. You have you have the material uh, that people need to hear, and I'm glad I had this opportunity. I'll certainly be looking for more of your information. Believe I saw several interviews on YouTube with you. I didn't watch them yet, but certainly going to, and to learn more about your attitude, your value system, and so forth. That's the hour, Dan. I greatly appreciate your time, and um, I guess we're done for now. So, thanks, listeners, for joining in. Dan Bowling, check him out on His company is at thegenesiscompany.com, and you can follow links from there to learn more about. And also check the show notes. We'll have links to all the things that we mentioned available there. Thank you, Dan.
You got it. Thanks, everybody.